Good morning, Real Writers and Tarot for Writers group. This is Chris here, and I thought today I would combine the two channels together since I haven't posted on the Tarot for Writers channel in quite a while. Just too much going on and not enough brain space, and I didn't want to take that to the video. So I have some new decks I've mentioned before on the Real Writer channel, where you can find writing prompts for the Tarot Writers for Writers group. You can find writing prompts and journaling videos. I'm doing a journal with me every Sunday now. This is the 5th one. I believe it's the 5th one. I guess I should have checked before saying that, but I'm not counting because they're just a part of my week now, so I'm not counting, but I've been doing them for many weeks now, so we can safely say that. But there are shorter videos that you can use for writing prompts and to help you work on your sensory writing. That's something I see that writers need to do all the time, is work on their sensory details and the experience of a scene in a moment, so that the reader can feel that they are experiencing with the character or with the narrator if you're writing creative nonfiction or poetry or a play or whatever. I mean, plays are different a bit because you can't really describe too much because, you know, it's on stage and you have to leave stage directions. Stage directions shouldn't be too specific, just like in screenwriting. There's a certain amount of interpretation the actors and directors do. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. Instead, it's Sunday, it's sunny, I've lit some incense called Unlock. Just felt like that was appropriate for today. I have some new tea I'm drinking. I found at Books A Million. It's Pour Me a Cup, the Raven blend. It has cranberry, blood orange, and black tea. It is so good. And you don't need sugar because the cranberry and the blood orange make it sweet. And since I live in Baltimore, this seemed very appropriate. I don't know if we have Books A Million in Baltimore. For those of you who are local, I bought this in Virginia, visiting family. So Google Books A Million. Although I don't know, maybe Barnes & Noble has it. I haven't seen it. It's Republic of Tea. So you may be able to also find it in like Whole Foods or Harris Teeter or wherever Republic of Tea is sold. Just to set the scene, I'm drinking it out of my Thistle teacup that is China made in Scotland. Last name Stewart. I think that makes sense to you. This is, when I saw this teacup, I was so excited. And I hardly ever use my good teacups. I'm trying to start a collection of these because I'm a tea freak. And I thought today I would treat myself to drinking it out of China instead of one of my miscellaneous mugs. I'm going to light some, I think I've torn this, some incense matches, which are matches that are also incense. Which always make me a little nervous because you have to let them burn down a bit before you put them out. And I'm always worried I'm going to burn myself, but this is Yasmin, and we'll also light some sage with that. So this will continue burning like a stick of incense, so I'll put it over here. And now we have some sage going as well. And a little Palo Santo can't hurt. Just got a bunch of smoke going here to cleanse the air and any energy I'm bringing to the video. I've also brought this cool feather that now I have to distribute the smoke around a little bit because it's burning in one direction. Let's go this way a little bit. And I'm keeping my selenite wand close to keep things nice and clear. So in front of you, you have 3 cards to choose from, and using these 3 cards, you will pick one and journal it. Journal the message that either you receive when I talk about them or that you receive yourself. And I want to, I'm going to go right to left. And I've pulled some crystals to go with them. I have blue lace agate here, and aventurine here, and red jasper here. So you can pick the stone you're drawn to, you can pick the card you're drawn to. It doesn't matter. You can just go with the color of it or the image, whatever you're first drawn to. And yes, we have a new moon tomorrow, so you may want to go with the moon card if you want to focus on that, but you could use any one of these messages for the new moon, which is all about setting intentions at a basic level, new beginnings. So the first card I'm going to start with is the Moonology card. This is from the blue card with the moons. I think that's pretty clear. This is from the Yasmin Boland Oracle Cards deck, and Yasmin is an astrologer who does videos and astrology predictions on via various media and her own newsletter. So I really love these cards. So this is the mutable moon. Nothing is set in stone. It's a very dramatic image of seas in upheaval under a waning moon, I'm guessing. I've always been a little iffy about interpreting the crescents. So let's find mutable moon, which I should have learned where it is by now in this booklet, but maybe not. Yes, this is a waning moon, by the way. So nothing is set in stone. Mutable is all about change, shape-shifting even. Sorry, there was a dash there that was a little hard to read. That something is still developing. Let's try this sentence again. Mutable, it's got a lot of punctuation in it, semicolons and dashes and all kinds of stuff, so it makes it a little hard to read. Mutable is all about change, shape-shifting even, that something is still developing. This card indicates that something is indeed changing and there's room for maneuver. So take it as a sign that the situation you're asking about is far from finalized. If you're not happy with the current state of play, that's marvelous. It means that you can still change the course of the outcome. However, there is also a sense that the situation could perhaps be a little unstable. For some, this is great news because you can still influence. You can still influence it. Others will struggle with the uncertainty, but should stay with it a little longer. Either way, nothing is set in stone yet. So she has these attuned to the moon, which are these sort of affirmations, and this reads, I know that the best will unfold for me. Additional meanings for the card. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, you guys. I can't talk today, but also the text in this card is extremely faint, and it's a very, very light gray, and it makes it so hard to read. Additional meanings for this card. You're meandering towards your goal, and that's okay. Staying adaptable is the key to success for you now. Make sure you're not being led astray. Have you become distracted? Time to focus. Stay with it, whatever it means to you. In astrology, there are 3 so-called, this is going to be fun. This word is going to be fun. Quadruplicities, cardinal, fixed, and mutable. The mutable signs are Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces. And when the moon is in one of these signs, you know there's going to be more flexibility in a situation. Anytime you pull this card, it suggests there's the opportunity to keep visualizing and affirming what you want, as there's still room for change. So think about what you want and enjoy the daydream. So you have 2 choices with this card. One is you want something to happen, it's headed that way, but it's not yet set in stone, so anything can happen to change it, knock it off its course, including you. Or it's headed in the wrong direction and there's still time to change it and turn it back around in the right direction, and you can influence it. So for the journaling for this card, you might want to use the intention, the affirmation statement. I know that the best will unfold for me, and then state what the best is for the outcome of this situation that you're experiencing or that you wish to happen. You can look at what might be getting in the way that you can see is already getting in the way, or that you're worried will get in the way. Make a list of these things and then write a positive statement about how you would handle each of these things to keep it on the path, to stay on the path that you would like it to stay on. And include how you would handle the situation, these little obstacles that might come up, or wrong turns, or whatever they are, these things that might get in the way. How would you handle them? How, maybe write an intention for each one of those things, like an affirmation statement for each one of those things, so that if it happens, you're ready to go. Okay, so that's the mutable card. And then the next card is the Sacred Traveler Oracle cards by Denise Linn. I really love Denise Linn. She has a wonderful book about creating sacred space that was written a while ago. And I just really love her style. And I was so happy to see that she had a book of cards. These are the Sacred Traveler cards. And also they're purple, which I love, as you probably know by now. So this one, let me move the stone so you can read so the Gates of Triumph. Success expands in your life. So note how this is kind of different from the Moon card, which said, oh, we're not sure yet where this is going. It could go either way. You can influence it to be what you'd like it to be. Or even if it doesn't head in the direction you want, you could still influence it for the positive. And this card is saying Gates of Triumph. So you could also use this entire reading as a journal prompt if you wanted to, by the way. So, maybe watch the whole thing. Even if you were attracted to the Moon card right away, watch the whole thing, and you can see if there's something, a whole message here that you could read, that you could respond to. So, Gates of Triumph. The meaning of the card. The gates of triumph are waiting to open deep and wide for you. Inner and outer success is coming your way. Thriving is a state of mind. Accept that you can reach any goal you desire, and even more victories will expand in your life. The more you feel it, the more love, prosperity, fame, and fortune will pour into your life. The Sacred Traveler wants you to know, arriving in a foreign hamlet, this is sort of a heading, sorry. The Sacred Traveler wants you to know. Arriving in a foreign hamlet, wreaths of flowers are placed around the Sacred Traveler's shoulders. The townspeople celebrate and honor the traveler. The village elders know the challenges faced and overcome and are welcoming with open arms. If a situation knocks you over, get up and brush yourself off and discover what you learned. You aren't a failure if you fall down, only if you stay down. So keep going and believe in yourself. This is what true success is. Acknowledge your accomplishments in life. They are more than you imagine. Victory, good fortune, and triumph are at hand. So this is extremely good news. This is a very, very positive card. You might want to I personally respond to visuals. Text and visuals, but visuals are very important to me. I'm not always very good at visualizing, so having images that I can respond to is very useful to me. So you might want to take a screenshot of this card, because it has this is a wonderful symbolic image for imagining success and reaching your goals, and that it's right there. And so you could also, like I said with the last card, do a little bit of journaling on the challenges faced and overcome in the past tense. For the first card, it was about what could happen to get in the way. What are the challenges you might face, and how would you overcome them? And creating an affirmation statement to sort of symbolize what you've written, so that you're ready in case those things happen, in addition to writing the best outcome, visualizing the best outcome. So here you might do that as well. You might list the challenges faced and overcome, and celebrate that you've overcome them. How did you overcome them? What, not just actions did you take, but what were your thoughts and feelings and beliefs that encouraged you to keep going and to persevere and to persist. Persistence as a writer is extremely important. I mean, if I could, in real estate, it's location, location, location. In writing, it's persistence, persistence, persistence. That covers everything. It covers your training as a writer, going to workshops, learning. It covers persisting when what you're writing is what you feel is crap. Persist when you continue to be rejected, if that's happening to you. Persist if you succeeded, but now you don't know where to go next. Maybe you have a book and you're struggling with your second book. If you are just not getting anywhere with something you're writing, just persist. It's sitting down and continuing to write through the difficult times, and to continue to put yourself forward and continue to learn, that will eventually get you through these gates. It doesn't mean that's it. You never have to walk a rocky road where it's dark and foggy and you just keep getting attacked or whatever. But it means that you know that you've done it once and you can do it again. You just have to persist. So I want to really drive that home. Maybe put that on a card and say persist, 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 or use the word persistence. I've said before via various means that you could put up these 3 index cards that say keep going, keep going, keep going, which mean the same thing. But it's important to celebrate how you got somewhere and take a moment and look back and analyze how you got there, and then feel those feelings of triumph and sort of lock those feelings in so that you can tap into them again. Maybe, like it says here, you could list the lessons that you've learned and take time to consider them. Often we don't take time to consider the lessons that we've learned. We just think, oh my God, thank God that's over. Let's just put that behind me and move forward and pretend it never happened. Or you might take a moment and say, well, it was worth it. It was hard, but it was worth it. But do we ever really sit down and consider the lessons and what we've learned so that we can use them as tools to move forward? Consider them tools and skills to move you forward through more difficulties and more gates of triumph ahead, because life is always going to throw stuff at you, and you're not always going to stay on this sunny, wonderful path. You might also consider who you have to thank, and maybe write them a note and acknowledge them. And if success here means publishing a book, make sure you acknowledge the people who helped you in your book. So that's that card. And the next card is Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom Oracle Cards by Christiane Northrup. Dr. Northrup, I'm sure most people have heard of her, not just through like Hay House or something, but she has a lot of great books on women's health, especially on menopause. And if you are someone who is in perimenopause, or you're going through menopause, or you're postmenopausal like me, she has a lot of great books about the secret pleasures of menopause, the wisdom of menopause. There's the Wisdom of Menopause journal and the Secret Pleasures of Menopause playbook. And she's a doctor. She's an OBGYN, so She knows what she's talking about. She's super funny, and her favorite pastime is dancing the tango. So she is a super cool lady. So let's turn this card around and see what it is. And let me move the stone. So there are 5 different, let me explain the structure of this deck to you. There are 5 key life areas that she has in this deck: fertility and creativity. And there goes the air conditioning. I hope that's not too disturbing, but it's too warm. Fertility and creativity, partnership, nurturance, self-care, self-expression, and enlightened heart and mind. And then there are development steps within each key life area, and they proceed as follows. 1, imagine/allow. 2, prepare. 3, flexibility within structure. 4, hierarchy versus partnership, which is this card. Perfection versus imperfection is 5. 6 is risk versus safety. 7 is active versus passive. 8 is channel clearly. 9 is regroup. And 10 is complete and move on. So I'm going to bring this a little forward because she is not stabbing her. She is, that's a paintbrush. She is painting her. So this is a creativity card. Clearly, it says fertility and creativity, but it's very, very obvious in the image, which is nice. That's not always the case. And fertility, creativity is about fertility. You have to feel like you have a fertile mind, that the seeds have been planted and now they're growing, and you're watering them and harvesting them. And sometimes that dries up. There's always a fallow period to some degree, and there's nothing wrong with that. But fertility and creativity definitely go together. So let me find this explanation and read it to you. Hierarchy versus partnership. Throughout our lives, we are constantly changing places between leading, following, and being a bona fide partner with equal say. All roles are necessary, but you need to know when to assume each of them. So I'll read those again to you. These places are following, leading, and being a bona fide partner with equal say. When it comes to your creations, you must be willing to support them by claiming ownership and responsibility. If you need assistance, especially financially, you need to relinquish some of the decision-making and leadership role in how your creation gets cared for and launched into the world. Identify what is, quote-unquote, your baby and what is a, quote-unquote, shared creation. And there's a little note here that financial support usually grants rights of ownership. So this is perfect for writers because some of you are just writing for yourself in general. Some of you are, if you're here for journaling, you may not have the intention to publish your journals. You're writing for yourself. But you may also be using journaling as a means of creative expression, of digging through this fertile ground to find the jewels, the seeds that you can then replant and water and grow into a project, whether it is a poem, a single item like a poem or a play or an essay or a story, or it is a longer piece, some kind of collection, a book, the production of a play or a series of plays, a novella, whatever it is. And so when you are writing something that is going to go out into the world, you have several partners in this, right? So you might have a writing partner, you might have a critique group, you might have an agent, you might have the editor at the small press that agrees to publish your book, you might have a beta group that reads the book ahead of time and just gives you some basic feedback as it's in its early drafts. You might be reading parts of it to people at readings when it's not finished. You might be trying out new material at readings to see what the response is. You might be publishing parts of it online. A few of the poems online or in print copy magazines or papers, literary magazines or papers, or even reading them on radio stations if you're someone who is invited to do that, to read new material, and getting feedback that way. And then there's the most important person in this whole thing. That is the reader, your ideal reader. Once you put something out into the world, it can no longer just be about you. It has to also be about the reader. So it sort of comes down to a triangle, like this little love triangle. And that is you, the book, and the reader. And at some point in your writing process, you need to be thinking about, you need to step away from you and what you want and what you hope this will be, and start thinking about what the book is, or the piece. I'm just going to say book because it's easier, but it can be poem, an essay, a song, whatever. You have one intention, but it may be coming through into the finished piece in a different way, and you need to make space for that. You need to allow for that to happen, because sometimes the mind, the creative mind, has a different idea than what you think you're writing, and you should be open to that, because it doesn't mean it's wrong, because it doesn't match your vision. And then you also need to think about the reader. Are they understanding and engaging and feeling where you're coming from and where you're going in this story? Or is it too much about you so that there isn't room for the reader to participate? At some point you need to relinquish control to the reader. At some point you're going to have to finish, and that's going to be it. And that's where your agent and editor come in, because they're now taking the book from you, hopefully doing whatever they can to honor your voice and vision, because that is important, but also how is this going to land with the reader? The reader pays the money that makes this stuff possible, right? Unless you self-publish it yourself, but you still have to think about that. You still have to think about your reader. So where are you right now in this process? Are you leading? Are you following? Are you do you have a writing partner with equal say in the story? Or are your partners your agent and your editor, one separately or both together, helping you bring your piece across the finish line? Or an editor at a literary magazine that has stuff they've given you, suggestions they've given you for you to make changes, and you're all working together on that, or you're working with your critique group to help for them to help you make the changes. Are you driving your piece forward too much, imposing too much of what you want this to be, forcing it? Or are you following the creative inspiration? Or is that a blend? That's also a partnership between you having your ideas, but also making room for creative inspiration and allowing for detours and side trips, and maybe jumping into a whole different landscape and going down a different road entirely, if you're willing to be open to that. I would also say that this could also be, when I say that you are initially the creative force, the leader of your project, because you're writing it, and at some point you have to start allowing the book's voice and what it's showing it's turning into and wants to be, and the reader in. You can also be following too much what an agent and editor want you to do, or following too much what a critique group is saying, letting them lead you too much or too far, and not, if you're not comfortable with something or you disagree, not speaking up and not taking charge more to blend together these ideas your own way. So don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to, say, well, thank you for opening the door to that. I don't agree with that specific idea. Can you brainstorm with me so that we reach something that is more my style and that I'm comfortable with? As a manuscript editor, I do this all the time. I make sure that my clients know that what I'm suggesting is not set in stone. I'm not saying they absolutely have to do this. Some things are about craft, and then I do say you really need to do this, and I am a little firm about it because it's an element of craft. But that doesn't mean that they can't change what I'm saying into a different way of accomplishing that craft element that they are more comfortable with. So I'm always happy to brainstorm with people. I'm just saying, this is something you could do, this is something you could do, rather than saying you have to change this, because saying that just casts the person out into a void with nothing to hold on to and to orient them in the darkness. So the editor's job is to say, here is a point of reference, here is a latitude and longitude from which you can look out and see other ideas. Gives you a place to start from. And I'm always happy to brainstorm. That is my absolute most favorite thing, to brainstorm on critique calls, or the calls that I do with clients after I've turned in their editing work, and to hear which things didn't resonate with them and find the common ground that they're not just comfortable with, but excited about. That's just so much fun to me. I've spent 2 hours on the phone with people doing that. I just love it. It's so much fun. And it gets them excited, and you want to be excited. You don't want to feel beaten down by criticism or anything. And but it's also important to understand that just because you receive a critique, that some elements of the critique that you don't like, that isn't a personal attack. And if you're new to critique, whether it's in a group or using an editor, that's important to learn. You have to have a thick skin. It's not personal. It's in service to the book and to making you a better writer. And you should always let critique and editing suggestions sit for a bit before you react to them, because often the things that you react most strongly to in a negative way are usually the things that you are recognizing you need to do and that are right, but you don't want to do them. There's always truth in everything an editor shares with you. There's always some grain of truth. Sometimes a grain, sometimes a boulder. It just depends. So I've lost track of what what journaling suggestion I was going to give you, but I guess I would write something on everything I've just said about where are you. Yes, I remember. Where are you in this process? Are you leading? Are you following? Are you a partner with equal say? Step back and look at where you are in this process, and where you need to take more of a leadership role, where you need to step back and let people give you advice and take that in, and which advice are you going to follow, which resonates in a good way and which resonates in a negative sense, because again, you want to look at that. That's important. And where do you need to step back and look for, I don't know, the universe or these cards to provide you with creative inspiration, because maybe you're pushing too hard with your work, and that's why it's not working, or maybe that's why there's something off a little bit, or it may be working really well, but it doesn't hurt to step back and see where you might be more open to other ideas coming in that can expand and enlighten and enliven whatever you're working on in a way that you couldn't possibly imagine. So those are the cards for both of you, my journaling group, my Real Writers, and my Tarot for Writers groups. Some cards are going to inspire more comments than others, as you can tell. I think the third card inspired the most. But I'm compelled right now to go back to the first card, the Mutable Moon card, and look at it more in terms of writing, not just what might be happening in your life, but in terms of writing, and say that based on the reading in the Fertility and Creativity card, what's coming up for me is that your project may not be as complete as you think it is. There may be more elements that need to come in, and you need to be open to them. And it's hard to sit with uncertainty, and it's hard to sit with this upheaval. I get seasick, so the idea of being in a boat on that ocean right now makes me very uncomfortable. So I wouldn't want to be, but some people might find that extremely exciting. I think watching that from a safe distance, I would find this very exciting. So that would be fine. But I would say allow things to come in and shake up what you're doing. Maybe you have too much of an outline and you're not allowing for new ideas to come in. So this to me seems like your piece might need a little shaking up. It might need something really intense and dramatic and something surprising. So consider, think when you're looking at your piece, think about what is something that you can't imagine happening that would be the craziest thing to happen in what you're writing. Something really crazy. And it doesn't mean you have to keep that thing. It's just you could use it as a catalyst. And it doesn't mean you have to keep whatever you write on this in the piece, but just look outside these boundaries. Let things be a little uncertain and unstable. There's, good things can come out of instability. A plant can grow out of a crack in the sidewalk that comes from an earthquake, for example, which I have seen. I lived in LA for 7.5 years, and I was there during the Northridge earthquake, and I remember things that happened, and wonderful new buildings that were built, safer buildings, when other buildings collapsed and crumbled, and that's tragedy. But out of that came security, safety, grounding, and technology and creative ideas to make people safer in their homes. So, and plant new spaces, plant new green spaces and create new elements to a community. So any, good things can come out of upheaval. But also in your creative process, don't play it so safe. That's what I'm getting. I think some of you, it may be that you're playing it too safe and you need to go out on a limb. And in that case, this idea of what's the craziest thing you could write is a good prompt related to whatever you're working on, but also what is something you don't want to write about? What is something that scares you or that makes you really uncomfortable? Go there. You're a writer. Writers, creative people, I'm not going to say you can't avoid places that make you uncomfortable, and within reason, for heaven's sake. I'm not saying go out and literally be in a place where you're not safe. I don't mean that, but I mean mentally and emotionally. It's better if you can try to allow yourself to explore things that make you uncomfortable or afraid. Within reason, take care of yourself. But this creates a fullness in your writing and a three-dimensionality that will allow you to really reach people. And it may be that there's an experience in your past that you don't want to deal with and you don't want to look at. Maybe this card is telling you it's time to do that. So that could be something you journal on. But again, it could just be as simple as, try something new, try something different that you're afraid of failing at in your writing. It could be as simple as that. So let's take some time here. We're now at 38 minutes, so these are getting longer, not shorter. But let's pick a card. Write about them. Write about the card for the next 10 minutes. So if you would like to keep going past 10 minutes, just pause this video and do so. I wanted to pull together the reading here because I ended up writing something on all 3 cards myself. Because even though they aren't in a specific order, these cards say to me that well, first of all, the Gates of Triumph is in the center. And so these cards say to me that regardless of whether or not you are coming from the mutable moon card where nothing is set in stone, and so you can still influence your pathway toward the Gates of Triumph, or you are working through issues with leadership, partnership, and when to lead, when to follow, when to allow and receive, and how that affects your creativity and your project, you are also headed for the Gates of Triumph. Again, as the mutable card says, nothing is set in stone, but to me these cards say that it's your choice. Reaching the Gates of Triumph is your choice based on what you do, which is not rocket science. It's not, I'm not, this isn't a magical conclusion. I think anyone could draw this conclusion. I'm just voicing it. But we do sometimes forget that outside forces are not always determining our path and whether or not we succeed or not. How we handle those obstacles and how we respond to those outside forces and make them work for us rather than against us is what ends up leading us to or away from success. So I just want to say that in case you feel like the Gates of Triumph card is not an option for you, or it feels too unlikely and too far away and too magical thinking. It really isn't. And if you felt that way and you avoided that card, because this one, the moon card, has such a sense of uncertainty and instability, braces are still happening, or the way you see this fertility and creativity card is as some kind of knife versus a paintbrush. Maybe that's how you saw it at first, and it looks like someone being hurt rather than helped, and a surrender in a negative sense versus a positive sense. If that was your first response, take a look at that, maybe go back and incorporate that into your journaling today, because you want to change those beliefs. You want to turn those beliefs around. They may be habitual, that you're always seeing the negative instead of the positive, and so the Gates of Triumph card just seems to, it seems like it's not possible, that it seems impossible, and life isn't like that, and etc., etc. So if you can't see success expanding in your life, as this card says, then part of your work is to turn your thoughts around and turn your views around and your beliefs around toward this idea of triumph, and that you can succeed, and that the gates are open, they're not closed to you. So maybe take that into consideration today. If you've completed your journaling, maybe go back and add something and look at what you've written and see if you can, if it's not positive, if it's too defeatist or negative, turn it around so that you can make a start. Anyway, thank you for joining me, everyone. I hope you'll come back next week. Tarot for Writers. I hope you'll join us in the journaling session next Sunday over on my other channel. There is a link in the description box. And vice versa, if you haven't joined me for tarot readings, which are really oracle readings, not tarot. So I really should change that, but because I just don't feel capable of taking on learning the tarot to the extent I need to. right now, please feel free to join in, and you can always use the tarot readings as journal prompts as well. There are at least 6 or 7 months worth on this channel, so you can go back and pick the one that attracts you, compels you, and journal on that as well. So thank you for joining me, everyone, and happy writing.